think we gotta go.
Tons of concrete are poured.
Yeah.
Suddenly, the concrete Saints has been crushed.
God dang it, man.
Almost immediately, the...
He's been married for how long?
Over 27.
Oh, over 20.
Look at him though, he look mad.
I hate that it's still funny even though I know the context, man.
I know.
He was right.
He was.
It was a funny joke. Slightly unfortunate there has to be a sequel to this, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. There's a lot of really bad things that have happened on television. A lot of bad things that have happened that I've seen personally on the internet. Number one is just that you always want things to go good. You know, you want things to be happy and all well and good. But oftentimes, that's not how it works. Sorry to say, but life is never as simple as we want it to be. And complications always can make things worse. But, yeah, the thing about the darkest moments in television history, the first one, was I knew about a lot of them. I knew about the Vic Morrow incident. I knew about a lot of the stuff that they were talking about. But I think we're going to be getting into the territory of stuff where I'm not going to know a lot of this. So the only thing I can really do with these in a lot of cases is just sit back and just absorb what they're talking about, like as best as I can. Because this is going to get crazy. This is going to get really crazy. So, buckle up, buttercups. We got us another Nick Crowley video. The darkest moments in TV history, number 2. Let's go ahead and get this up here. Let's check it out. Here we go.
January 11th, 2001, famed Brazilian actress, model, and singer Xuxa lands her prop spaceship on the stage of a Brazilian TV set and begins her show the way she always does. The program, titled Xuxa Park, was a hit for the Rede Global network, targeting a demographic of young children with its over-the-top dance numbers, fun games, and immersive futuristic sets. Premiering back in the summer of '94, Xuxa Park had shown little signs of slowing down by the turn of the century, and seemed poised for a long, impressive run, barring any unforeseen disaster. On this particular day, 300 children were in attendance to watch or participate in the show's activities. Xuxa's infectious energy led the way from segment to segment as they played games, showed cartoons, and of course sang their songs. And by the end of the episode, the crew had all gathered on stage to perform one last musical number, to end things off with a bang. And evidently, that's exactly what would happen.
What is that thing going by in the background?
This frame was taken just over 1 minute later, revealing all that remained of the set, as within that impossibly short window of time, the once bright and inviting scenery was turned to a pitch-black, unrecognizable hellscape, barely comprehensible to the camera that was also just mere moments away from being swallowed by the flames, but not before it would capture the carnage firsthand.
They must have built that thing out of something super flammable because that went up fast.
Oh my gosh. Dude.
In the blink of an eye, the spaceship which Xuxa had rode in on and was moments away from re-entering to leave the set would catch fire, all while the dancers continued their performance, unaware of the emerging danger behind them. A member of the staff quickly enters the frame in an attempt to extinguish the flames, but it was already too late.
Yeah.
As just a few seconds after the spark, the entire ship was engulfed by the blaze, causing a mass panic on the set. Worst of all, directly next to the fiery ship, and just barely out of view of the camera, was the show's signature Ferris wheel, which kids would ride during the program, including during this very moment. As the fire raged, one boy was trapped in his seat, helpless to the danger unfolding around him. Hence, noticing this, a group of brave people on scene began desperately trying to free him, which can just barely be seen on the left-hand side of the screen. Thankfully, their attempts proved successful, as he was eventually freed from a seat and carried to safety.
Thank God.
The fire was later determined to have started by an electrical short circuit, and the set would soon be completely turned to ash and rubble. But as for the nearly 300 children and numerous staff on scene, despite multiple injuries, everyone had somehow managed to escape the building with their lives.
Oh, wow.
With the only reported fatality being the show itself, as this would be the last episode ever filmed, with Shusha Park being swiftly cancelled. Thankfully, this moment saw all parties involved survive the ordeal, a rarity in the world of disturbing television moments. Though it does highlight just how quickly things can go downhill when the cameras are rolling, and when these dark moments ultimately happen, all we can really do is watch.
The thing lit up like it was doused in kerosene, man.
Yeah, man. That. I wonder what material it was made out of to make it explode like that. Because, you see, I've witnessed, I've witnessed things that are, paper is flammable. It's not explosive unless it's doused in something, or, because I've seen...
Partially wondering if the whole thing wasn't painted with, spray paint or something.
Yeah, potentially. I don't know. There's a few things that could be paper treatment. There's some paper treatment stuff for stacking them together, and adhesive stuff that does in fact have flammable materials that can in fact cause a sort of explosion like that.
Yeah, it could have been put together with flammable adhesive. Could have been spray painted. Could have been a combination.
Yeah. You always got to practice.
I don't know if spray paint's still flammable when it's dry, but I know it's flammable.
Yes. Well, it's the aerosol that's in the can itself. Still though, man, that's glad everyone escaped with their lives. I'm glad that didn't go terribly, terribly wrong.
If there's one lesson you can learn from my channel, it's that the internet can be a dark and unforgiving place, and unfortunately it's become all too easy for data brokers to find our personal information, like our full legal names, personal emails, home addresses, and even our relatives. And as someone who has been personally affected by the availability of this information, which has caused me a great deal of anxiety, I'm very excited to tell you about today's sponsor, Aura, a company dedicated to helping our private information stay private. Aura uses their technology to identify data brokers that are exposing your information and automatically submitting opt-out requests on your behalf, which extends to junk mail, telemarketing lists, and my personal least favorite, robocalls. On top of this, Aura monitors your emails and passwords to assure your information hasn't been involved in any data breaches.
Auto filters spam text messages now, but for some reason it still notifies me every time it does it. So it's it's still almost as annoying as seeing the spam text message, you know?
Yeah.
It's you got a spam text message. Cool, I don't care.
Yeah, get on it. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Even going as far as to search for your information on the dark web to see if any of your personal details might be out there. Aura's app also features a VPN, password manager, real-time credit and identity theft monitoring, internet parental controls, and even protects your devices from malware. So if this sounds like something you may be interested in, you can use my link, aura.com/nickcrowley, to get a 14-day free trial and see if your personal information has been leaked online.
Joandra Núñez, La muchachita era hija de Emilio Núñez.
There are very few manners of death that strike fear among us as much as the horrifying prospect of being buried alive.
Really? Do you
The
have to go
dark,
this one?
claustrophobic nature of it, slowly losing oxygen with not a thing in the world you can do to stop it. It just strikes a chilling chord with so many. However, with this fear arose a unique opportunity for those looking to make a spectacle. Rather than running from this
That's
mortal
like one of
fear,
your
a
things
select
that's similar
few
to my
magicians
shark
and
thing, isn't it?
daredevils have tried
Yes.
their hand at the challenge of being buried alive, by not just surviving, but escaping. The trick was popularized by arguably the greatest magician of
Houdini.
all time, Harry Houdini, who tried his hand at the stunt on a few separate occasions, the first of which would see him narrowly escape a casket buried under 6 feet of dirt by breaking through the surface with his fist, only to fall unconscious before he could complete the trick, with the stunt almost ending in his death. From there, he would be buried again on 2 separate occasions, surviving both for well over an hour, but never being able to fully pull himself out.
I know the one they're
and
gonna
in turn
pull up.
pull off the seemingly impossible. Houdini did have plans to give it one more try in 1927, when he believed the stunt would finally be completed, but sadly he would pass away before getting the opportunity. Because of this, the trick is acted as somewhat of a magnum opus for any magician able to pull off the feat, a feat that even the great Houdini himself couldn't accomplish. And so, on the 66th anniversary of his death, American escape artist Bill Shirk would honor the late magician by attempting to do just that. For the stunt, Shirk would add extra elements of flair, upping
Yeah.
the danger by being handcuffed,
I know
and
this
having
one.
cement poured over
This-
top of the
yeah, I
casket
remember
as
this
opposed
one.
to just dirt.
Oh my God.
He planned on doing
Oh.
it all with a TV
This-
crew on hand.
I saw this live.
However, from the get-go,
I s-
things seemed
oh
to
my
be
God.
off with the performance, as Shirk expressed
Ooh.
concern over the grave being dug too wide and too long, thus changing the dynamics of his escape.
Hope I'll make this. I got a bad feeling about this thing.
At
Yeah.
one point, when the first layer of dirt was being applied, Shirk would use his walkie-talkie to tell his team to call off the whole ordeal and to pull him up from the ground, seemingly in a moment of clarity. But everything was already in motion, and this was his big moment with everyone watching. He couldn't afford to fail. Besides, he had been buried alive before, setting a record back in 1977 by spending a total of 79 hours beneath the surface of the earth. He was no stranger to this, and not wanting to let his fans down, Bill Shirk would change his mind and continue the stunt by giving his team the green light to begin pouring the cement. And as that concrete began to settle and harden over top of the casket, things take a very grim turn.
Decides to go ahead.
I think we gotta go.
Tons of concrete are poured.
Yeah.
Suddenly, the concrete sinks.
Oh,
Has been crushed.
God dang it, man.
Almost immediately, the level of liquid concrete dips dramatically, and large bubbles appear on the surface, accompanied by a massive splashing noise. Signs that point to only one real possibility,
balls.
that the weight of the concrete and dirt had caused the coffin to cave in, with those very same materials instantly filling in any available space inside the coffin, and in turn, suffocating Shirk. The rescue effort was underway almost instantly, but still, it felt like it was all moving in slow motion, and most assumed right away that if the weight of the concrete alone had not killed him, then the lack of oxygen certainly would.
A backhoe digs and digs, and crucial moments pass. Shirk cannot be found.
Yeah.
Holy crap, he
Yes.
actually survived?
Wouldn't
Yes.
be the case. Incredibly, Shirk
Oh
managed
my
to
God.
claw his way to the surface, where his team was able to pull him to safety and rush him into an awaiting ambulance. And though his
Oh.
The fact that he survived that happening almost makes that more impressive than if he had just got out, like, with no bad things happening, you know?
Exactly, and that to me, I remembered like just when it
When I saw it go down like that, I was like, oh,
he's dead.
He died.
That's what I thought too originally, and then then his hand breaching through, and then eventually them clearing the cruft and getting him out. I know that this is a successful rescue, but there's just in my head, I always imagine just like the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Of just that's it. Dunsky, that's it.
condition appeared severe. He was alive and had somehow cheated death.
Thank God he spared my life on this one, and it'll be a while before I'll do one of these, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Despite claiming to be done with this
Smart.
stunt for a while, Shirk would be back to attempting his death-defying stunts soon after, with some ending in similar results.
After Shirk climbs in the casket, the snake goes in first, but there's a problem, and Shirk has to get help.
Oh, there it goes.
But although Bill Shirk was able to...
This guy just doesn't know when to quit, man.
I mean, that's just the case of play stupid games, win stupid prizes, know what I mean?
Yeah.
To escape this trick with his life, not everyone has been so lucky. 2 years prior to Shirk's run-in with death, another performer known as the Amazing Joe had attempted the same stunt at an amusement park, also going the route of having dirt and wet cement poured over his plastic and glass coffin. This was Joe's attempt at becoming a master escape artist, and forever etching himself into the history books of this particular niche. In fact, he had already done what Houdini couldn't, as years prior he had escaped from a wooden coffin covered in 6 feet of dirt. But this attempt was clearly much more extreme, and with it should have come an immense amount of planning, not only by Joe himself, but the team around him. However, according to reports, the coffin used was never actually tested to see if it could withstand such a great amount of weight, and also
So this guy probably actually did die.
Yes.
never tested the weight of the cement itself and the speed in which it would harden. Joe was quite literally going into this blind, and his confidence was apparent, as the cherry on top of this poor planning was the fact that no rescue procedure was in place.
And that's... no. Mm-mm. If I'm ever doing any kind of, like, thing involving any danger, I have contingency plans, and I have people with me in case things do go bad and I'm incapacitated or anything like that. I have someone there with me who can help out and can call the police or call an ambulance if need be. It's like anytime I go shooting, I don't go by myself. I go with somebody because here's the thing. As confident as I am in myself, I know shit can happen. Shit can happen, and it's just something that is just impossible to avoid.
Yeah, a bullet could ricochet off of something, hit you in the kneecap.
Yeah.
And you're just like, fuck, now I have to crawl out of the woods.
Yes.
But if you got somebody with you, at least they can call somebody.
You know, God forbid, a shell backfires on me, and next thing you know, I'm blind. I'm like Kentucky Ballistic, and part of the shrapnel comes back and pierces my sternum and almost like kills me by hitting my heart. Like that happened to Kentucky Ballistics, and for the life of me, the man is lucky to be alive, and plus he is in amazingly good shape and had a lot of people around him to help him out when his 50 cal exploded. I don't like taking chances on things if risk can be avoided. It's just, for me, it's common sense.
Should the stunt go horribly wrong, and unsurprisingly, well, that's exactly what would happen.
It was a cold night anyway, and when it sunk, I just knew trouble. We're in trouble. It's not fun anymore.
Much like the footage from Bill Shirk's attempted escape, the level of cement and dirt suddenly dips, only this time in a much more dramatic fashion, with the cave-in being so brutal that I'm not sure I'll even be allowed to show it on YouTube. According to many onlookers there, the coffin being destroyed by that immense weight caused a massive crashing noise, followed by immense panic from those trying to rescue Joe. But without a proper plan, the situation quickly grew helpless.
Yeah.
Entrapped beneath that dirt, surrounded by cheering fans, his parents, and a TV camera, the Amazing Joe would lose his life, ironically within a coffin buried 6 feet under.
Todo ocurrió cuando estábamos en el La hija de Emilio y
It's like
Marisa.
people who've done tightrope walks across buildings with no safety net or anything to like in place, like in case of a fall. It's like, I don't care how confident you are in your abilities, man.
Well,
Stuff happens.
well, I know, and there's one instance, the amazing, well, you mentioned tightrope walk. If he ever covers it on this, the amazing Walindas.
I believe like that's probably what I was mentioning that I thought it could have been about on the previous one, but it was actually something else.
Yeah, there they are, the amazing Walindas. And the thing is, the patriarch of course, the internet. The internet decided to just take a shit. Alright, switching. There we go. So, the amazing Walindas, they're a, wow. Okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
So, the Flying Walindas. The Flying Walindas did high wire acts without safety nets. And, unfortunately, Carl Walinda, the patriarch of the family, unfortunately, in 1978, in the middle of Puerto Rico, was in the middle of doing a high wire act, and yeah, he fell 121 feet to his death. Let's see. And this, yeah, and he'd done it 1,000 times. That was the crazy thing. He had done this stuff 1,000,000 times. And then the one time, the wind picked up too much, and he fell.
Mm-hmm.
This was the last image before he fell.
Yep.
Yeah, there it is right there. So, don't know if I can show this, y'all, but
I believe that's on video, actually. So that's why I was wondering if that's what one of the things he's going to mention.
he might. But the thing is, the Walindas continued on even after the patriarch's passing. Whenever Carl Walinda passed away, his son Nick carried on the traditions, and it's just it's endearing and heartwarming, but at the same time, you know, whenever. Plus, the other thing too, he was 72 years old when he made that walk. 72.
I mean, at least he lives into his 70s. Not everybody can say that.
That's true.
But still, could have lived to be 100 if he hadn't.
Sporting events are
Taking
no
the
stranger
risk,
to
yeah.
disturbing
Yeah.
TV moments, from hockey players having their throats cut
Oh,
open.
yeah, Zednik.
Yeah, I remember that one.
There's Zednik and Malarchuk were the two worst ones
So the one
I've
time I
ever
went
seen.
ice skating, I was worried about that happening at some point. Not necessarily like a throat cut, you know, but like just the blades on ice skates are so sharp.
Yeah, and, well, there it is. Yep.
Yeah, that one you can't show on YouTube because you can see all the blood pour onto the ice.
Yep.
Watch Malarchuk. That's the story right now with red. Oh, look at
Phew.
It's bleeding everywhere.
Yeah, and thankfully he lived. He was able to get off the ice, and they were able to get him patched up and get him back on. And from what I understand, Clint Malarchuk was actually back playing again later that season after enough time had passed.
Yeah.
Sorry we couldn't show that one to you all, but YouTube will not allow that.
Just imagine spilling like the top 1/4 of your Coke bottle.
To a football player
Except for it's
suffering
coming out of
cardiac
your neck
arrest
and it's
right
your
there on
blood.
the
Oh,
field.
DeMar Hamlin, dude.
They have been administering CPR through
Yeah.
these past two
He just-
breaks that we've taken.
It's unfortunately all
That was hands down the scariest moment last season.
That was
Hands
last
down.
season that happened?
Yeah.
I didn't hear about that.
It was a game between the Bills and the Bengals, and it was for like playoff implications. First quarter, they complete a pass, and DeMar Hamlin gets hit right in the middle of the chest by a player's helmet, but he takes the player down. Then, Damar Hamlin springs right back up like nothing's wrong. And then he takes about 2 or 3 steps, and then just falls back, and that's it. They did not only stop, that is the first time in a long time the NFL has just canceled a game. As in, they didn't replay it, they didn't, postpone it or anything like that. To me, that was the best choice they could have made. Because
such a serious situation that nobody there wanted to see the end of the result anymore.
At that point, who cares?
All anybody cares about is whether or not he's okay, pretty much.
Exactly.
Point,
and here's the beautiful thing about when that happened to Damar Hamlin. Damar Hamlin, let's see.
I'm assuming his heart stopped for a minute.
Yes, he had a full cardiac arrest.
Damn.
And let's see. He had a GoFundMe that he was starting that he'd started. It was basically Chasing M's foundation. Yeah, that's his foundation. And I think he had the goal $50,000 after this incident. Oh Jesus. Okay. $10 million was the amount given to his charity. Yeah, we can't. It's not letting us open it up anymore.
Yeah, the page probably doesn't exist anymore at this point.
Probably, but yeah, that one hurt. That one hurt me really bad because I was watching that game, and then I remember I don't really have any huge like pull for any of the teams because the Bengals or whatever, the Bills or whatever. I was watching to see because it was a good game. It was 2 of the better teams in the AFC squaring off. But then when Damar Hamlin went down, immediately my focus instead of so who's going to win the game? It's is Damar Hamlin okay? That was everyone's focus.
Yeah.
Both teams came together in the middle of the field,
dude, even if it was,
prayed for him.
Even if it was my least favorite team, even if I was watching the Ravens play against
the Saints
and it happened to somebody on the Saints, I would be like, "Oh shit! Is he okay? Oh fuck! That's not good." I don't want anybody to get killed in a football game.
It ain't worth that, dude. It ain't worth it.
Always a risk in practically any televised sport out there, and although there's always a lingering chance that at any moment things could go terribly wrong, that risk mainly pertains to the players actually participating in the sport, and you likely wouldn't imagine fans being
the Kevin Ware injury was another
as they
one
sit
that
by watching the game.
It can be in baseball, and they can be in NASCAR, especially.
Yeah.
Does happen from time to time, with perhaps the most notable example being the story of Shannon Stone. Shannon was a 39-year-old firefighter who, on the 7th of July 2011, took his son Cooper to watch a Texas Rangers game in Arlington. This was the perfect bonding opportunity for the duo, and an even better opportunity to catch fly balls, as their seats left them in prime position to take home an unforgettable souvenir. The two would even stop at a sporting store beforehand, where Shannon would buy his son a baseball glove to use in the event that a loose ball came flying their way. And as the game reached the top of the 2nd inning, their moment had finally arrived.
Oh, this is where he leaned out too far and fell, isn't it?
When I look at who the A's are facing.
A foul ball was hit in their general direction, being quickly recovered by Rangers outfielder Josh Hamilton, and rather than returning the ball to the dugout or the field itself, Hamilton decided to make Cooper's day, recognizing the young fan in the stands and subsequently tossing the ball to Shannon. As this was all transpiring, the game continued with the pitcher preparing for his next throw, before suddenly you can hear the sound of something strange.
I want them to be great in their last game. I'd rather have that than have it like Holland where he gets knocked out.
It almost seemed like yelling, which was followed by some sort of strong reaction from the crowd, which in turn led to an immediate stoppage of play, as the announcers were left trying to figure out what exactly was happening, until they finally received word on the unfolding situation.
He's got a lot of energy built up.
I think somebody fell out of the stands in left field trying to field a baseball guy. Well, this is it. That's why there was time taken. Wow.
The man in this footage was in fact Shannon Stone, and as Josh Hamilton had gone to toss the ball up to him, the throw fell just a bit short, causing the 39-year-old father to extend past the railing before losing his balance. And despite the seemingly playful nature of the announcers at the time,
you were right, Ray. Somebody did tumble.
this fall was no laughing matter, as below that railing stood a 20-foot fall directly onto a concrete floor, which Shannon would strike head first. As he laid there on the ground, barely able to move, the man was miraculously still conscious, finding the strength to tell the rescue team carrying him out, "Please check on my son. My son was up there all by himself." Based on this reaction, it was clear that Stone was obviously alive and had clear brain function, making his initial prognosis on the scene somewhat promising. But before he would even reach a nearby hospital, Shannon Stone would be pronounced dead. According to many medical professionals, this immediate showing of brain function was more or less a fluke occurrence, and something they call a lucid interval, which is a window of conscious clarity after a traumatic injury, essentially meaning that although his ability to move and speak seemed to be a positive indicator, it was instead a sign that the injuries his brain had suffered were going to be fatal. In the years since, Shannon Stone's memory lives on with a statue being made in his honor in that very stadium where his life came to an end, forever immortalizing someone who, by all accounts, was a great man and an even better father.
Yeah, that sucks.
It does, man. You hate to see it.
We don't see or hear anything.
If you spent any considerable amount of time here on YouTube, then chances are you're at least somewhat familiar with the show To Catch a Predator. During its run on Dateline, the show was incredibly popular, with its host Chris Hansen being launched into stardom for his role exposing pedophiles on the internet.
How you doing? All right, have a seat over in that chair, please.
At the time, there was really nothing else like this on TV, and was widely viewed as one of the most entertaining shows out there, which has caused it to find a second life here on YouTube, as re-uploads of its episodes have been viewed as many as 50 million plus times. To this day, the show remains immensely popular, and during its television run, the same was true, which led me to wonder how or why it was ever taken off the air. I mean, it was entertaining,
legal
popular,
stuff,
and with the internet exploding in recent years,
a lot of the people they caught actually managed to get back away on entrapment defenses, which is bullshit.
It is.
Content would seemingly be endless, yet somehow this show only lasted 3 years. And that's when I realized that there's actually a very specific reason why To Catch a Predator was pulled from the air, and it's one of the darker TV stories I've ever heard. During the fall of 2007, Perverted Justice, the team that To Catch a Predator used to find their predators, had set up a decoy account on MySpace, posing as a 13-year-old boy. And before long, another user had taken the bait, reaching out to the fake child in the hopes of sparking an intimate relationship. According to the user's account, he was a 19-year-old college student that happened to live in the same area. However, upon doing some light digging, the Perverted Justice team discovered that the man was actually in his late 50s. His name was Louis Condrat, and although his behavior was similar to essentially all other predators in the show's run, sending explicit messages and pornographic images despite knowing he was speaking to a child, Louis was different in one respect. It seems that Condrat was in a position of power, working as a chief felony assistant district attorney for Rockwall County. This was setting up to be To Catch a Predator's biggest catch to date, and exposing him would not only mean bringing him to justice, but also bringing in great ratings for the show. Though there was one major issue. Upon engaging the decoy for a few hours and even calling to speak to him...
Hello?
Hey, Will.
Hey, what are you doing?
Nothing. What are you doing?
Nothing.
No?
No, I was looking up to see how to get to where you are.
Still thinking about me?
Yeah, where's your right hand?
It's in my pocket.
In your pocket?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And what are you doing with your right hand in your pocket?
Lewis stopped responding and seemed to recognize the grave error he was making and began deleting all content from his account. And as a few days passed, it was clear that Lewis was not going to be visiting their sting house, which meant no program and no justice. However, the To Catch a Predator team was not going to let this go easily, with the crew coming up with a plan that had never been done before in the history of the show. They were going to bring the program to Kondrat. And so on November 5th, Hansen and his crew would visit Kondrat's house with a group of officers and an arrest and search warrant. This would not be without controversy, though, as the warrants supposedly contained wrong information like the wrong county and the wrong date, meaning that they would likely struggle to...
Little oversights like that.
Fucking thing wrong on a warrant, judges just throw the whole thing out.
This is true. Hate to say it, but this is why being stringent on your paperwork is so big when it comes to stuff like this.
Dude being a district attorney, that was literally probably the first thing he looked at whenever it happened.
Yeah.
He was probably like, well, let's see this warrant. Yeah, you guys have a good night. And they were
pulled
like,
up in court. And probably should have never been acted on. Despite this, the crew urged law enforcement to act anyway, rushing the ordeal to assure they got their guy. And so the police agreed, first calling Kondrat and then knocking on his door for multiple hours, though neither attempt saw any results. And growing impatient with the whole ordeal, they then called in the SWAT team to surround and eventually breach the house, which they would do around 3 p.m., barging into the home and surrounding Kondrat at gunpoint. As this was all happening, To Catch a Predator had their cameras trained on the outside of the home, awaiting the shot of Kondrat being ushered into a cop car and driven away, unaware that this time, things were going to end much differently. Inside, Kondrat would yell to the officers, "I'm not gonna hurt anybody," before brandishing his pistol, and rather than pointing it at the officers, he instead pointed it at himself.
The officers line up.
Never mind, it wasn't what I thought it was.
Formation and head to the back of the house. Then we hear a faint crack. The officers force their way in. For almost 5 minutes, we don't see or hear anything. Then Lieutenant Adina Barber of the Murphy Police Department comes out and tells us what happened.
As they made entry, they confronted the suspect. I believe he's in the hallway, and he told them he wasn't going to hurt them.
And he had a pistol in his hand.
This single gunshot would essentially mark the end of To Catch a Predator, as in the time following, NBC would be hit with a $105 million lawsuit from Kondrat's own sister. And though this lawsuit was settled privately with undisclosed conditions, the show was already on death's door, which was not helped by the national media dogpiling on To Catch a Predator, as well as perverted justice.
But now there are serious questions about what goes on behind the scenes.
Whose sting was this? The police departments or the vigilantes hired by Dateline?
You don't have the full transcripts?
I don't know. If the police department was there with them, then it was technically the police department's. They had evidence, and they had a reason to go.
Yes.
Like, I don't think they should have been faulted for that.
No.
The police department can't tell me whether or not I have the full transcripts.
Did your arresting officers, did they see the chats before they made the arrest?
In some cases, yes.
Did they see the entire chats?
Making it impossible, says District Attorney Roach, to mount a successful prosecution. Charges have been dropped against every single person arrested in the Murphy sting.
With these claims causing some to believe that the show was more interested in entertainment rather than justice. And whether that's true or not, To Catch a Predator would be cancelled, marking a tragic end to one of the strangest, yet most compelling TV shows ever to be broadcast, thanks solely to this grim moment.
What if we find out that the whole operation in terms of the media dogpiling onto Chris Hansen and To Catch a Predator was started by a shell corporation that was funded by none other than Jeffrey Epstein? Would it surprise
Supposedly
anybody?
some documents were opened today. Haven't got to see any news on them yet, but there was
Oh.
a list of names revealed today of people that were
John
confirmed to be.
Apparently, John Doe number 36 is a former president.
That's what I heard. Is that people thought it was supposedly going to be Bill Clinton.
Yeah, supposedly Slick Willie. That's what they call me.
Su ex esposa Maritza. Maritza, me daría una reacción para ocurrió así por
Oh no.
As evident by the first batch of cases in this video, many of the darkest moments in TV history come from shocking accidents or overall disturbing events that play out for the cameras to see. However, there are a select few examples where television moments only really become dark long after they're aired and more context is given. For example, in our first installment of the series, we discussed Renard Spivey.
Ask him, he's been married for how long?
Over 27 years.
Over 20.
Look at him though, he look mad.
I hate that it's still funny, even though I know the context, man.
I know.
He was right.
He was.
It was a funny joke.
63-year-old Renard Spivey accused of killing his wife, 52-year-old Patricia Spivey, after an argument that turned deadly.
The man who had murdered his wife years after making an appearance on television, with one joke at his expense during this time aging like milk. The concept of killers finding their way onto TV is one that I've recently become fascinated by, with the case always being brought up in tandem with
Yeah. The dating game, yeah. The dating game killer, this guy.
With this conversation being the dating game killer. In 1978, a man named Rodney Alcala had found his way onto the popular show The Dating Game, earning a date with Cheryl Bradshaw above all other contestants. However, this date would never actually materialize, as upon meeting him away from the cameras, Cheryl found the man to be creepy and ultimately declined to speak with him any further. And as it turns out, that decision may have saved her life. During the time in which this episode was shot and aired, Rodney was in the midst of a massive killing spree, ending the lives of at least 8 people that we know of, though many claim his true number of victims is shockingly closer to 130, due to the fact that they had found a stash of over 1,000 photographs detailing women, young boys, and men that Rodney had taken, many of which are believed to have been unidentified victims of him. And what makes this all the more chilling is the fact that Rodney had told the show that he was a photographer, and it was even mentioned during the program.
Now let's see, bachelor number 1 is a successful photographer who got his start when his father found him in the dark room at the age of 13, fully developed.
Given the shocking nature of this case, it's really no wonder why it's become so popular, especially here on YouTube. But surprisingly, there are quite a few examples of killers finding their way onto our TV screens that have happened within the past decade alone. And one that even happened within just days of writing this script. One obscure example comes from the show Celebrity MasterChef, where in the background we can see an inconspicuous man serving food cooked by the contestants of the show. The man was one of a dozen unnamed chefs, just helping out, typically out of view of the camera. But for this one split second, and likely to the recognition of no one, we see him. This man's name is Stephen Port, a 40-year-old living in South London, who has since come to be known as the Grindr Killer. Stephen is responsible for the deaths of 4 men he met on the Grindr app, all of whom he had lured to his flat and poisoned with fatal doses of GHB, before going on to violate and then dump their corpses. With these murders transpiring not long after this fleeting moment was broadcast for the world to see, making me wonder just how many other killers have appeared in glimpses on TV that have not yet been recognized. Maybe they were walking in a crowd or panned over at a sporting event, hiding in plain sight. But killers don't just get shown as background characters, or as one-off contestants for just a single episode. Sometimes they are permanently etched in the show's history. In the summer of 2020, Food Network began airing a season of Worst Cooks in America, one of their more popular shows, and this one was set to be a big one, as it marked the program's 20th season. The competition was all in good fun, with lots of humorous and memorable moments, leading to the eventual finale on the 2nd of July. And in that episode, the fan favorite Ariel Robinson would take home the crown as winner of the show, along with a grand prize of $25,000. However, if you were to look for this season today, let's say on demand, on streaming services, or
find
even
it.
on TV, you would be left with no results, as its existence has been practically wiped from the face of the earth. And given what happened after the season ended, this comes as little surprise. Upon winning the competition, Ariel Robinson settled back into her normal life with her husband, Jerry, and after securing life-changing funds from the show, the couple made the admirable decision to foster a young girl named Victoria, whom they eventually decided to officially adopt in January of 2021. On the 6th of the month, just over a week before the adoption was set to be finalized, Ariel would take to Twitter to boast about her parenting, stating, "I'm a mama bear and I'll do anything to protect my children and make sure their futures are equally bright." A statement that seemed in line with her already stellar reputation as being a fun-loving, good person who dedicated her life to loving her kids. However, no one could have imagined the devastating turn this family was heading for.
Oh no.
5 days after Victoria's adoption, Ariel's husband, Jerry, would dial 911 stating,
"We have an emergency. Our daughter is unresponsive. She's drunk a lot of water. We're trying to pump, like, CPR to get out. Our 3-year-old daughter is choking on water right now."
Your 3-year-old daughter is what?
Choking on water right now. We need help immediately.
Okay, we'll get help on the way.
This led to emergency responders rushing to the scene where the young girl was found unresponsive on the floor of her bedroom and was soon after declared dead. Across her body were countless bruises which Ariel claimed to have been from their attempts at CPR. Though bizarrely, during the whole ordeal, her story would quickly change as she soon began blaming her 7-year-old son, whom she stated had a history of anger issues, believing potentially he had killed her. Already, something very strange was happening with the situation, and it only became more bizarre when a forensic pathologist confirmed that Victoria had died not from choking, but from blunt force injuries and internal bleeding, essentially meaning that her death was no accident. This launched a full-scale investigation into the couple, where it would later be discovered that on the day before her death, Victoria had gotten sick at church, causing Ariel to undress her and make her walk out of the building in just her underwear, telling her, "Oh, you're cold, you're cold. Girls that make themselves throw up deserve to be cold." This anger seemingly boiled over the next morning, where, ironically, Victoria was refusing to eat pancakes that Ariel had cooked, which led to Ariel grabbing her, dragging her up the stairs, and beating her with a paddle. According to Jerry, who was working in the backyard at the time, he could hear the beating from outside, claiming that it lasted almost an hour, though he did nothing to...
Jesus, man. You're fucking complicit at that point.
I'm sorry, but I have a very, very special place in my heart that I for anyone who abuses kids, I have a list in my head of people, and if I ever meet them, I don't think I'll be able to contain myself. I abhor people who prey upon children. I hope this person is I hope this person never knows happiness and spends the rest of her life just in a living hell for doing this to a 3-year-old child. 3 years old, everybody.
I hope the rest of her kids never have to see her again. Hope they find a loving family with somebody else.
I don't care who you are. If you are a big enough coward to bully children like that as a grown adult, you deserve a stomping. You deserve a vicious stomping.
Stop it. And as a result, Victoria began to bleed internally and later would pass away due to the traumatic injuries she had suffered by the hands of her soon-to-be mother. When it was all said and done, Ariel Robinson was arrested and will now spend the rest of her life in prison, so soon after her triumphant win on Worst Cooks.
Justice, holy shit, the justice system actually works.
Yeah, unless they decide to let her out on good behavior before the end of her sentence.
Since the news initially broke on this, the entirety of Season 20 has been removed from the internet and has been wiped from the show's history. But for me, one of the most chilling moments in Ariel's history on television came soon after her victory, when a local news station would come to her home for an interview.
But now I truly am not the worst cook in America.
But she is the winner of Food Network's Worst Cooks in America Season 20.
Yes, I am putting mayo in a glove.
Ariel Robinson lives in Simpsonville.
We're inside. We see a sign proudly displayed by Ariel, touting her as the #1 mom. Soon after, this same local news station would become the leading reporters on her murder case. Despite this all transpiring within just a few years, this surprisingly is not even the most recent example of a killer being prominently featured on TV, as news broke of this final example just days ago. In January of 2020, the widely popular show Family Feud featured the Bleefnick family, who would go on to win the episode and leave a few iconic moments in its wake, with the most relevant coming from this man, Timothy Bleefnick. During one of the segments, the question was posed, "What is your biggest mistake you made at your wedding?" To which Timothy responds with,
"Honey, I love you, but said I do." Not my mistake. Not my mistake. I love my wife. I'm gonna get in trouble for that, aren't I?
If you've seen the show before, you know that this type of humor is the norm, and jokes like this are made in virtually every single episode. But this one would later take on a much more sinister tone due to the events that unfolded not long after the show had aired. Around a year after Timothy's moment in the limelight, he and his wife Rebecca would actually separate, not officially divorcing, but living in separate homes and seemingly not getting along either, as it was recently revealed that Rebecca had filed for a restraining order against both Timothy as well as his father, a clear indication that she believed her life was in some sort of danger. Fast forward to February of 2023, and the two were finally making headway on finalizing an official divorce, before on the 23rd day of the month, gunshots rang out from Rebecca's home.
Police say 41-year-old Rebecca Bleefnick was found by a family member Thursday. Police say she had been shot multiple times.
When police arrived on scene, Rebecca was sadly no longer alive, and it wouldn't take long for investigators to turn their sights on Timothy. On March 13th, police would arrest the now 39-year-old in connection with his soon-to-be ex-wife's death, charging him with 2 counts of first-degree murder and blaming him for the shooting that took place at her home, with his mugshot showing him as completely unrecognizable to the man we saw on TV just years before. The whole situation is incredibly disturbing.
Oh boy.
And what makes it even worse is just how beloved Timothy and his family were in their hometown. I mean, they literally had community watch parties to cheer on the family that can still be found here on YouTube.
But listen, there was so much fun. I'm so happy and appreciative of the support community, so thanks.
Making the event soon to come all the more tragic. And given everything that's happened since the show aired, and since Timothy said this iconic joke, I think it's very possible that there was at least some truth to his words.
Ya que estamos aquí, trataba de conseguirla a usted, si es tan amable, me da una reacción para el programa Ocurrió Así.
Our final entry takes us to the tragic passing of 15-year-old Yoandra Martine back in November of 1992. The young girl had recently discovered that she was 13 weeks pregnant, much to the disappointment of her family, and subsequently ended her life as a result, which momentarily thrusted her parents, Maritza Martine and Emilio Nunez, into the public eye. The two had been separated since before she was even born, with Maritza gaining full custody, something that Emilio would later claim she had used to keep his daughter away from him, as the two supposedly spent very little time together. As a result, Nunez began publicly blaming Maritza for the death of their daughter, claiming that she and her new husband had been abusive towards her and had even struck her upon discovering she was pregnant. Making matters worse, Nunez would go on to allege that Maritza never even told him that their daughter had died and had only found out an hour before the funeral from a friend. Now, I want to stress that there is absolutely no information I could find to fully confirm any of what Nunez was claiming, and with many elements of Nunez's story, the jury is still out, though in his own mind, this truly seems to be what he believed, and this is where the dark side of television began to rear its ugly head. For whatever reason, the news station Ocurrió Así had decided to cover Emilio's allegations against Maritza, seemingly taking his word at face value and launching a full-scale story into the case. It started with Emilio being interviewed by a reporter from the station named Ingrid Cruz, which transpired in the vicinity of his daughter's grave. During the questioning, Ingrid would ask him things like, "What would you tell your daughter if she was still alive? And how did you feel when you saw your dead daughter in the casket?" Her questions were clearly crossing the line, and things would only get worse from here, as while they were filming this segment, Maritza herself had arrived on location to Yoandra's final resting place.
Doña Maritza. Maritza, ¿me daría una reacción para ocurrió así, por favor? Sobre la muerte de su hija Yoandra. Una reacción de usted.
Upon her arrival, Nunez immediately removed himself from the situation, and Maritza was instead swarmed by crews who began bombarding her with questions, each of which were ignored, as she clearly was uncomfortable and didn't want to speak to the cameras, and was just trying to get to her daughter's grave.
Quiero saber por qué, la reacción, el por qué.
She's gonna wind up hurting you. Like, here's the thing. I understand that, like, you're an investigative journalist and you're wanting to get to the bottom of something, but there is a level of respect that you have to have for the subjects of which you are covering.
Mm-hmm.
And if you invade their space, if you say things to them that can set them off, especially when they're in a very emotional state, like, you know, just lost her daughter, then don't be surprised if you're welcomed with a left hook to the jaw. I mean,
at the very least, if they accidentally turn around and cut you with their elbow in the face.
Exactly.
It's clear in the footage that tensions were rising by the second, as it seemed apparent that Cruz was clearly attempting to provoke her into any sort of reaction, until suddenly, the unthinkable happened.
Su hija tomó esa decisión de quitarse la vida. Usted no tiene nada que decir.
In a split second, and out of absolutely nowhere, we see Nunez charge back into frame. As though he initially appeared to be doing the responsible thing by walking away from the conflict, he had instead actually returned to his car, with the sole purpose of retrieving his pistol, which he would then use to shoot Maritza over and over and over again, all while the camera was still rolling.
Shot a woman, possibly coming after us. He's psychotic, man. Where am I? What funeral home am I at?
¿Cómo se llama esto?
Where am I at? Somebody shot!
Maritza would be shot a total of 12 times.
Jeez.
And in turn, her life would come to an end, as Nunez stood over her yelling, "I should have done this a long time ago." When the smoke cleared, Nunez would be arrested and sentenced to life with a possibility of parole in 25 years. And what's most frustrating is just how avoidable this really seemed to be. Maritza herself had actually requested a restraining order against Nunez not long before her murder, but was surprisingly denied, as police stated that it would only anger him more. With this happening despite the fact that police were already well aware of Nunez's violent temper, as authorities were literally called on scene for Yoandra's funeral, as Nunez had threatened to kill other members of the family. He was obviously a very troubled man, who following the loss of his daughter, needed help more than anything. Yet even after all this one news station decided to not only platform him, but to provoke him, right before the two had crossed paths, leaving us with one of the darkest moments to ever transpire in the history of television. I just wanted to let you guys know that I have the less censored version of these videos on Patreon, as YouTube has been pretty strict with my channel lately. And also I wanted to mention that my friend Nextbo and I have a joint clothing line and online story called Liminal Land that we've been working on since the beginning of the year. So if you're interested in checking that out, I'll leave a link below.
Jesus wept. Horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe it. I really can't believe that that is just... I wasn't expecting that to happen in that last one in that manner. Just goes to show you always expect the unexpected, huh?
Guess so.
That was something. I don't know what to say right now about that. The whole ordeal with that, first off, both parents, I think, handled the daughter's pregnancy the worst way possible. That's number one. See, I have a family member. She got pregnant when she was 16. She had a promising future ahead of her. She was an A+ student and all this and all that. But here's the thing. We had her back. We were there every step of the way. We loved her and we wanted her to have the best opportunity that she could to raise the kid, and she did. She had the kid, she raised the kid. Kid became, fully, a fully functioning member of society and is a good kid. Now, there were some people in our family who were just, very much so on the side of just I can't believe you all would glad hand her like that, and you'd hold her hand through all this and all that. I was like, what do you expect us to do? She's family. She's literally family. You expect us to just abandon her?
It tells you what kind of people the people who said shit like that are.
Yeah. But all things considered, my whole deal with that happening was that thankfully she had good people around her to help her through it. But this girl, the daughter of these two, obviously did not. She didn't have very much support at all. And it wound up costing her everything. At only 15, too. 15. I couldn't imagine. I really couldn't. God. Well, those are definitely some dark moments.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there's a third one up here that I know y'all are going to ask us to watch. But rest assured, we'll get there.
Give us a minute.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel like this every day.
I don't either. Yeah, you'll have to give us just a little bit of time on those.
At least a week.
At least. So, that's going to do it, everyone. These were the darkest moments in TV history, too, by Nick Crowley. If you enjoyed what you saw here and you want to see more, feel free to click Nick's name in the title of the video. And until next time, I'm Nate.
I am Nick.
Y'all be good people. Take care. Peace.
Don't close this yet.